right, folks, welcome and peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Happy Monday. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. The big story, the big news shakeup as Tucker Carlson, formerly of Fox News, is gone, along with CNN's, with Don Lemon, formerly of CNN, is gone. Wow. We'll talk about what impact that will make on network news. Also, folks, let's talk a little bit about the 2024 presidential election, how two black GOP conservatives have thrown their hats into the ring for the big seat. What does that mean? We'll be checking in with Dr. Jason Nichols around that issue. Also, later, we check in with Dr. Bridget MD for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness segment as we talk about mental health in black youth, how there's some fear and some resignation that black youth are feeling after the shooting of Ralph Yarl. Folks, we got a lot to talk about and a whole lot more coming from you, my culture crew. So stay with us and get ready to jump into conversations right here with the culture on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. First and foremost, happy Monday. I hope that you had a restful and fantastic weekend, folks, wherever you are and wherever you're streaming us on, as we're streaming right now on Black Star Network, on Amazon News. You can also check us out on social media platforms, YouTube and Facebook. And of course, while we're on there, make sure you do your due diligence. Make sure you follow us, you like us, you subscribe to us. And, of course, continue to support us here at Black Star Network at blackstarnetwork.com. All right, folks, let's talk about the big conversation that everybody's talking about, which is what just happened as two of the big names of big news media, a big news network, have parted ways, as these news outlets have said, parted ways. We're first talking about Tucker Carlson, who was Fox's News big time guy. He was their guy. He was the go-to guy. Well, as a result of this Dominion lawsuit, Mr. Carlson has left Fox News. Yes, folks, the guy that has often put out a whole bunch of garbage, he's officially gone from Fox News. Are you surprised that this Dominion lawsuit that was in the billions, check this out. It's crazy. The announcement came after Fox News parent company had settled with Dominion Voting Systems defamation lawsuit for they really wanted more, but they winded up settling for $787.5 million. So the company's hosts were not required to talk about the lawsuit or make an apology as part of the settlement, according to the reports. And according to a statement from Fox News, they said that Fox News Media and Tucker Carlson have agreed to part ways. We thank him for his service to the network as a host and prior to that as a contributor. There will be no send-off for Carlson, as his last program aired Friday. He signed off Friday saying he will be back Monday, and he wasn't. Tucker Carlson's Fox News top-rated program, Tucker Carlson Tonight, has long been a Fox's top-rated programs. All right, crew, y'all know what I'm going to ask you to do. Join me in the conversation. Let me know your take on this. Tucker Carlson is out. He was always a problem, though. He spoke about stuff that he really didn't have a true understanding of. They often lied in his broadcast. And, of course, we know how he flowed with the conservative movement, especially around the support of former President Donald Trump. So I want to get your take on this, folks. Tucker Carlson gone from Fox News. Are you surprised? Does this mean anything for you? Or does this mean that they're going to just find another person to plop in and keep the train moving? All right, so that's Fox News. I want to get your take on that. All right, also, let's talk about on the other side. This is very interesting that we have these two stories happening today because they are literally on the two sides of the extreme. Whereas you saw more of a conservative slant on Fox News, you saw more of a liberal slant on CNN. And no one has pushed that liberal agenda, quote unquote, more so than probably like Anderson Cooper, not Anderson Cooper, excuse me, Don Lemon. Don Lemon, folks, he was fired as from CNN. However, his story is a little interesting in that he said he did not know that this was going to be the case. He said that this was like a blindside.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
There's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Really quickly, we wanted to talk about the fact that Don Lemon, formerly of CNN, has been fired. Mr. Lemon has gone on record to say that he did not know that he was going to be terminated by the network. He said he was informed this morning by his agent that he's been terminated, and he was stunned. After 17 years of CNN, I would have thought that someone in management would have had the decency to tell me directly. Of course, his departure was swift. He appeared on CNN this morning earlier in the day and the network confirmed the news in a statement. They said CNN and Don have parted ways. They both have said they parted ways, both Fox and CNN. This is coming from the CNN chief executive, Chris Light, said in the statement. He said, Don will forever be a part of the CNN family, and we thank him for his contributions over the past 17 years. We wish him well, and we'll be cheering him on in his future endeavors. But CNN also challenged Lemon's account of how he was fired. The network said in a statement that they posted online that Don Lemon's statement about this morning's events is inaccurate. He was offered an opportunity to meet with management, but instead released a statement on Twitter. Wow. The move comes as CNN is facing resistance from advertisers and potential guests for the morning news program CNN This Morning, which Don Lemon co-anchored, folks. And according to the reports familiar with the issue, they were not authorized to comment. So Don Lemon is gone, a voice that has been on CNN for years, 17 years. Tucker Carlson is gone, a voice that's been a part of Fox News's brand and has been a behemoth of a show in terms of culture and influence and political thought and political discourse. And I want to get your take, folks. What do you see happening in this country? Now, I've been in situations and I've seen situations like this happen. Let me just tell y'all very, very briefly what I have learned, that as great as a personality as you may be, a person may be, and great as a cultural influencer a person may be, the reality is the institution is still bigger than the personality. That you're no longer big, you're not as big as the institution, folks. That's what I have learned. In the media business, stuff like this happens all the time. People are fired, people walk away, controversy, everything that you say is scrutinized. And so this right here just is a reminder, and it's like this, may be like this at your job too, folks, that this type of thing is a reminder that as much as you bring to the table, as much as you get people behind you, the institution still has the last word. That's what it comes down to. And I will be completely surprised, and I'm speaking of in the Don Lemon case, not in the Tucker Carlson case, but in the Don Lemon case, I'll be completely surprised if they bring him back on, even with quote unquote public pressure. It just doesn't happen that way. It doesn't work that way. This is from this institutional perspective, from the media outlets perspective, it might just be business oriented. And therefore, you as a personality just don't fall in alignment with where we're trying to take the network, or where we're, with the voices and the type of word we're getting from advertisers, the behind the scenes stuff. So it speaks volumes. It speaks volumes about how much power and influence you have, even as a personality, even as everybody says, oh my gosh, your show. That's one of the things that as media professionals, you got to always keep in the back of your mind that something could come up that can cause you to part ways. All right, folks, let me hear what you got to say on this very quickly, and then we're going to take a quick pause. First and foremost, let me get my brother and Dr. Jason Nichols, who's a lecturer from the University of Maryland, get his take on this, and then we're going to get to you, crew. What's your take on this? Dr. Jason Nichols, how are you, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm blessed.
Good. Don Lemon, Tucker, your favorite guy, Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I think these are two very different situations here.
Very, yeah.
I think Tucker is someone who I think is going to bounce back on his feet very quickly. I'm sure they have a tail on his contract, which means you're not going to see him for a couple of months. And then in that time, he's going to be working on his own thing. He'll get some mega deal from Rumble or maybe from another news network, and he's going to pop back up and do the exact same thing that he's been doing. I know Tucker pretty well. Tucker is...
You know him personally?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is he an ass in person?
You know what?
No, I mean, I'm really asking because some people play that on TV. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to say something. This might upset some people. All right.
Go ahead.
Tucker off camera is, in terms of personality, is very similar to how he is on camera. But Tucker will give you the shirt off his back. And
as a black, you mean if you as a black man needed a shirt, he would give it to you?
He would. And I'll tell you why. Not saying that he likes black people. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying any of that. All I'm saying is that, knowing Tucker, if I asked him for a favor, if I was like, hey, I want to meet with an agent or something like that, other people, including black people, will ignore my text messages, but Tucker would respond right away. Now, again, his politics are crazy. You know what I mean? And there's no shock that, he wouldn't be surprised that I would say that, because I've told him, you're a crazy person. You're insane. And I do feel that way. But I'll say, in terms of the business, him and Don Lemon are very different. Really different. Don Lemon got fired. Number one, there are tons of allegations about Don Lemon. About how he treats women, about some of the things that he may have stated. I'm not saying that they're true or not, but there's a lot of kind of bad press that CNN got around Don Lemon and sending anonymous text messages to his colleagues, calling women fat to their faces. Now, again, don't know that any of that is true, but those are the allegations, and that gave CNN bad press. The other thing is, Don Lemon is highly paid and got low ratings. And the last thing I'll say is that Don Lemon...
That's facts, Dan.
Yeah, and Don Lemon is not a leftist. He's not on the left. I want black people... Remember when Don Lemon... And I won't hold this against him forever, but I'm saying, remember when Trayvon Martin was murdered and Don Lemon told black people not to wear hoodies? And said, hey, maybe if you pull up your pants and don't wear a hoodie, you won't get killed? Like, that's Don Lemon. Don Lemon doesn't have politics. And I'm not saying anything bad about him as a person or a human being. I think there can be some separation between your humanity and your worldview. But Don Lemon doesn't have a worldview. And I think that's doesn't work for primetime. What makes Faraji Muhammad a great, host and somebody that people want to watch is that Faraji has a worldview. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He has a stance. He has something he stands on.
Right.
And Don Lemon doesn't. He was just anti-Trump. That was it. And so when Trump is
gone, you know what? Let me throw this out there, Doc, because I think that's an excellent point. Here's why I think the other parts kind of fall into place here. It's interesting that you say that, because there are two things I think that have worked in quote unquote Don Lemon's favor, where when it comes to his politics or his assumption of his political stance. One, he's working on CNN. So CNN is more considered to be more liberal, more center, right? And it's centered in their political stance, right? Mm-hmm. Even though CNN will say to you that I remember watching CNN for years, and some of their they had actually conservative voices on their networks for years. So it's not necessarily like a straight like MSNBC liberal agenda. But then the other part of it is with Don Lemon is that because he's a part of the LGBTQIA community, there's an assumption that he is all out progressive and liberal.
Right. Yeah, there's that assumption. I've never heard him speak on a lot of these issues. He doesn't really take the mantle. He did in his book dedicated to a white kid who got killed. I think because he was gay, and talked about that and his sexuality. But he hasn't really taken the mantle on LGBT rights and LGBT issues. And yes, he is gay. That is his identity. He did devote his book to that. And a lot of people were like, there are black kids that have committed suicide, been bullied. You didn't devote your book to them. Now, I think that's unfair. I'm not saying that that's necessarily the approach we should take.
Right.
But when you say that you justify a 17-year-old black kid getting killed by a vigilante by him not pulling his pants up, I think that people start to have those responses to everything you do. I think Don Lemon came out during the Trump era where Jeff Zucker was anti-Trump, but still not to the left. And now you have somebody who's not anti-Trump and not to the left. And they're like, where does Don Lemon stand? Don Lemon, what he said about Nikki Haley, I have lots of beliefs about Nikki Haley. Had that been in isolation, take a seat and then you come back and you apologize and it's nothing. But Don Lemon allegedly has a history of not working well with his colleagues, particularly the women in his organization. And I don't see him bouncing back. Are you going to watch, and maybe this isn't fair, but are you going to watch a Don Lemon podcast? Not unless it's New Year's Eve. I do like him on New Year's Eve.
Hey, look.
I like when he gets drunk on New Year's Eve. He's awesome then. But other than that,
hey, look, hold on, Doc.
Gonna go? Maybe me, Bravo, but he can't. He's not going to be in the news media.
No. All right, look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation about the big news shakeup with Tucker Carlson no longer part of Fox, Don Lemon no longer part of CNN. And I want to get your take on this. How does this shape the national conversations, political conversations that we've been having in this country? And more importantly, how these two men have used their platforms, used their influence to be at the center of controversy in some cases. So we'll continue to have that conversation. Plus, I do want to talk to Dr. Jason Nichols about two black GOP conservatives who are throwing their hats in the ring for president. What does this mean for black men, black people, and its relationship to the GOP? Stay with us. Those conversations will happen as we come forward on the culture here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We have been talking about the big news shakeup where Tucker Carlson is no longer part of Fox. Don Lemon is no longer a part of CNN. Two big voices for these two media outlets that are now parting ways with these media institutions. We've been checking in with Dr. Jason Nichols of the University of Maryland to talk to us about what the implications are as these two big voices have really inserted themselves. And I want to bring Dr. Jason back into the frame. Bro, when you think about it, and I love the fact that you said that Don Lemon doesn't have a political stance, whereas Tucker Carlson, we do know where he stands, right? But they've inserted themselves in very big national conversations, from everything from voting rights to immigration to book banning to, I mean, they've inserted themselves into it. But because these two voices are no longer with, and now we know the institution of media is going to move on. I mean, the train doesn't stop because of no personality. You and I both know that. But does this change the culture? Does this change how we have the conversation? Now that Fox, let's go back to Fox News. The scrutiny, the lawsuit from the Dominion voting systems, nearly $800 million had to be spent out to settle that lawsuit. It was actually much more that they wanted, but that's for the settlement. But Tucker Carlson is not just a commentator. He is a megaphone of certain ideology. It may not be the case for Don Lemon, but for Tucker Carlson, that's the point. And so do you just replace that? Like how does the conversation, how would it shift now that you don't have a major voice like Tucker Carlson into it?
I think Tucker Carlson's voice will be amplified by the fact that nobody will be able to see him as corporate. And he's going to be able to say, I'm this outsider. I think that his voice actually gets bigger. And if he does sign to like the Daily Wire or someone, they're going to be throwing money at him. Every conservative outlet is going to try to get Tucker. I think Tucker's going to go independent. I think he has enough money in the bank to start an operation up. And his voice might even get bigger because he'll be able to say, I'm not constrained by anybody on the corporate right. And we have to remember who's amplifying Tucker's voice. People like Vladimir Putin, people like Viktor Orban, you know, these foreign right-wing figures. And these are just facts. I'm not, you know, this isn't even like me just trying to slam Tucker. Like it's what it is. So I think Tucker is somebody who I think is going to personally land on his feet. He's going to do fine in this situation. I think, you know, of course, Don Lemon is a completely different situation. I see him, you know, like I said, being with E! or Bravo or maybe something like that and doing more fun segments, not doing politics anymore because he's not really a political guy. Tucker Carlson, on the other hand, is a force, and Fox is not going to be able to replace him. Nobody has the kind of reach that Tucker has. Nobody on their current roster, and they would have to have somebody that they build from the bottom up. Their current roster, when I look at Fox's current roster, I don't see, and I've been around all of them just about, and I don't see anybody with that kind of talent.
Hannity is still there, right? Man, it's been a minute since I watched Fox, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah.
Is Hannity still around?
What's that?
Hannity.
Hannity's still there, but I think Hannity's gonna leave soon. And Hannity's not a talented guy like Tucker. I'm gonna just keep it real with you. I've been on Hannity's show before, but you know,
he used to be that guy. That's interesting. Because after Bill O'Reilly left, they thought that he was going to be like the heir apparent of that voice. You know what I'm saying? He used to be that guy for like a quick minute. And then Tucker came in and kind of like stole his shine and stole his thunder. Maybe because Tucker came in with some much more racist, conservative views. Mm-hmm. And they got people fired up versus Hannity. After a while, he was maybe pushed back a little bit. But we do know from the whole January 6th situation that Hannity was in contact with like President Trump and his team during that whole moment, that situation. And so maybe, and you know, to your point, I think they both could go into the government space. Now that, you know, if Tucker gone, Tucker could possibly get a job working with Trump, you know what I mean, on his campaign, or even with DeSantis or serving as a consultant. Yeah. You know, that's how those situations go to shape, because they have such a pulse and they were the drivers for a lot of these cultural conversations. Having a person like them just even on your payroll as a consultant would still, you know, garner you some great benefit, because you still got a man that's in it, and he has an understanding of things.
Yeah, just knowing what I know about Tucker, I don't see that happening. Tucker doesn't want to get into that. Tucker wants to talk
that's cool.
about people.
That's fine. Hey, I'm good with it.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to, because people have asked Tucker about whether he'd run for president, which I think.
Oh no.
Honestly,
no. I definitely don't see that. I don't think being in the cards for him.
I think he could capture he's the only person I think that could energize Trump's base. And he's somebody who is not afraid of Trump. I don't think he's afraid of Trump the way those other people are. He doesn't kiss Trump's backside the way some of those other Fox people do. So I think he's been pretty clear. Like, I don't, like, even during the Trump years, he was like, I don't work for Trump.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he would criticize Trump at times, which was rare. It was different a little bit with the January 6th lead up and the people saying that the election was stolen. I think that's where he and everybody else started to kind of back off a little bit. But other than that, and they were probably getting some directions from the higher up at Fox. But other than that, I don't see Trump. First of all, a friend of mine was like, well, it could be Trump Tucker 2024. And I was like, no way. Number one, bro. Trump is smart enough not to take someone with a big personality to be his running mate. That's why he took Mike Pence the first time, because you don't want someone who's going to outshine you.
Nope.
Why Hillary Clinton took Tim Kaine. She could have taken one of the Castro brothers. She could have taken a lot of people, but instead she took somebody who would not outshine her in terms of personality.
Yeah.
And Tucker is way too big a personality. Tucker wants to do media and go fishing and hunting. That's literally the life he wants to lead. He doesn't want to get into politics. He doesn't want to consult or anything. He could make a ton of money doing that, but he doesn't. That's not his desire.
Let me go to the crew. Let me share with you what y'all sharing with me as we have this conversation about Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon. Jay West, you said, I'm so glad Tucker is gone. He had a vendetta against Tiffany Cross and she was fired.
Yeah, that's facts.
Yeah.
That's facts. But you know what? That's Faraji, that's MSNBC's fault. Why are they taking
huge?
You know what I mean? That I would never, I know, like I said, I know the guy. Like, if he were sitting there criticizing Faraji Muhammad, you think I'm gonna fire Faraji Muhammad?
No, not at all. Not at all. And see, again, this goes back to my statement, Jason, which was, bro, at the end of the day, the institution. Like, you could be as great as a personality, you can bring numbers in, but if the institution don't feel like you are part of their future, or they might be some personality clashes or personal vendetta in the institution that you work for. Mm-hmm. Guess what? You're just not going to win that battle.
Right.
You're not going to win that battle. Most of the time, folks, when you have major departures of personalities from media outlets, they do not come back. I have not seen one that has come back after a big public departure. It just doesn't happen. You know what I mean? It's just like, all right, well, the institution will take the hit. It might lose some watchers. It might lose some listeners, whatever the case may be. But guess what? The train keeps moving, baby. It keeps moving. Janelle, you checked in and you said Tucker Carlson grew Fox's crazy audience, but he also grew his own production and publishing companies. Murdoch probably needed to rein him in, but he got too big in his britches. I see him with Bannon, with Steve Bannon. Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be a possibility.
Yeah, I think he's way bigger than Bannon. He'll be way bigger than Alex Jones. He'll be way bigger than any of those people, excuse me, who have tried to do independent media. Tucker is a different breed. And we have to remember, Tucker has been on every major news network. He was on CNN. He was on MSNBC. He was on Fox. There's really nowhere for him to go except independent. I mean, he could try to go to some of the smaller networks, but I don't think they have the money to pay Tucker Carlson.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think Tucker Carlson is going to want. They say Fox lost, in terms of their valuation, $1 billion by Tucker's departure.
Woo! And that was just this morning?
Just this morning.
What?
What's the estimate is that they lost $1 billion in their valuation.
What?
That's what Tucker's. So
Bro,
you think
got me getting high pitched? What?
Yeah, you think Tucker's gonna go? I think I read somewhere that he makes $12 million at Fox. You think he's gonna go somewhere else for $12 million?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest with you. Now, look, $12 million to the average person sounds like a lot, but in media, it's not.
No,
it's not.
Hannity makes 32.
Who?
Hannity. He makes $32 million a year.
Hey, look, I can believe it. I can believe it. I can believe it. I remember when Matt Lauer was ousted, was fired. He brought in $25 million, bro.
Yep.
I was like, $25 million. $25 million a year. Y'all talking about, oh man, ain't black meat. And see, this is why Roland, look, he talking about $25 million. This is why Brother Roland's fight about advertising dollars supporting black media. Look, man, we're not getting that type of money.
Right.
Now, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. This is the thing, folks. You make that much money, somebody is going to direct or they're going to impact your voice.
Absolutely.
Fact. If I'm paying you $25 million, you better shut the hell up and report.
Yeah, you're going to say what I want you to say.
You're going to say what I want you to say. And so for black media professionals like us, Jason, we always got to ask ourselves, the moral question starts to come in, right? Mm-hmm. It may not be like this for white media analysts and journalists, but for black folks, the moral questions start to come in. As a black voice, do I just shut up and report and get the money? Or do I create a space or do I say what I want to say and not get the money?
Right.
That's the big part of this. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's switch gears because I want to give Dr. Jason Nichols take on these two black GOP representatives who are throwing their hats in the ring for president. My man, Culture Crew member Tomas reached out to me and said, Brother Faraji, you got to talk to the Dr. Nichols about this. What about the fact that GOP are latching on to black men? Tomas, we're going to have that conversation up next. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Wanted to switch gears into our second conversation with Dr. Jason Nichols, which is the conversation about two black GOP members who are deciding to throw their hats in the ring for president of the United States. I want to bring my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols, back into the frame. Let's talk a little bit about this, Doc, because one of the things is that as we have these two black men, Senator Tim Scott, who thrown his hat into the ring, conservative host Larry Elder is also saying that he's planning to run on the Republican tickets. This is serving as an interesting part of the mix as the backdrop for the 2024 presidential election is shaping up to be Biden-Trump Part 2. Now, take a look at this, folks. This is from USA Today. And this is coming out of, and at least if we could post this one, this first quote. President Biden is expected to announce his re-election bid tomorrow. I want y'all to listen. He's expected to announce this tomorrow. His standing among the voters who backed him in 2020 is wide, but shallow, at risk of being eroded by a credible Democratic challenger for the nomination or a third-party candidate in the fall. That's President Biden. Let me throw out there, if we can go back to that quote, please, Lise. For President Trump, support among his 2020 voters is deep but narrow, reinforced by controversies that are all but guaranteed to make it harder for him to expand his support in the general election. Interesting dynamics here, folks. Interesting dynamics at play as we talk about the 2024 election. Now, let me share with y'all. So I just said that the conservative host, Larry Elder, he decided to put his hat into the ring. There it is, Mr. Elder. He announced he's running for president, becoming the fourth challenger to take on President Trump for the Republicans' nomination. He appeared on Fox's News on Tucker Carlson's show. He made the announcement there. When he was asked by Carlson about what particular issue was driving him, he said that he wants to push back against the Democrats' absolute disgraceful lie that America is systemically racist. Let me tell you, now look, I'm having part of this conversation with you because Culture Crew member Tomas reached out to me. My brother said, Faraji, can we talk about how the right wing is latching on to black men? He said, because there's so much history of black men being separated from black women. Black men blamed government for the separation in the past. He talks about the fact that you got black men who are really coming out of a disgruntled space, Dr. Jason Nichols, and are saying, you know what? The GOP might be the opening for this conversation. What's your take on that?
Well, I don't think Larry Elder is the guy to actually get those disgruntled black men and get their votes. I think black men absolutely have reasons to be disgruntled. I think black women have reasons to be disgruntled. I think what we need to do is find a way for black men and black women to tie our agenda together and make sure that we are united the way our grandparents were, the way our parents were, and not let all of these, black gender wars get in the way of strengthening our communities and our families. That's the first thing. Larry Elder, he underperformed in that runoff that y'all had out there in California.
Yeah.
So I don't know why he thinks all of a sudden that he's going to have some sort of base within the GOP. He couldn't even get it done in his own state and not even come close when you had a weakened Gavin Newsom. So I'm not so sure why he's doing this. I think it's because he's lost all kinds of relevance. And the last thing that anyone is clamoring for is for another 70-year-old person to get into the race. So not sure why he's doing it, but I can say Tim Scott, I think, has a little more of a chance of gathering some sort of a small following. And I think Tim Scott, I've said, will be the GOP running mate. Because Tim Scott can put his head down. He can be Mike Pence in blackface. He can be that. Whereas,
well, let me say, and it's interesting. It's interesting because I want to show this video from an interview that Tim Scott did on Fox News. and talking about why he's deciding to run and what he deems to be the important elements on the ballot for the 2024 election. Take a look, folks. We're going to pull up that video, Lisa, just to tell me when you got it. But Tim Scott, with him being the way he moves, of course, he's from South Carolina. He actually shares him and Nikki Haley. Nikki is another candidate that's planning to run for president, or at least for the GOP ticket for the nomination. But I think he's more interesting. I agree with you on this. I think he's more interesting than Larry Elder because he doesn't come across as that dude down in Georgia. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
Herschel Walker. Come on, say the name with me.
Yeah.
He doesn't come across like a Herschel Walker. He doesn't come across as a caricature. He comes across as a black man who, quote unquote, has made the conscious decision and the big choice to be with the GOP and to recognize. I mean, he probably will tell you, like, yeah, I recognize the GOP got some race problems. I know we got black men problems. We got black women problems, blah, blah, blah. But I'm here to change that. He wants to come across as the guy that is the reformer of the party. And I think that when we had this conversation before, that one of the things that I've heard from some of my culture crew was that they said, well, black people need to get into the GOP to uproot the GOP and be the face of the party in a sense. And Tim Scott, I would say he is the black face of the GOP.
Yeah, no, totally. He is. I mean, you have other people that are vying for that, like Byron Donalds, and a few other black people within the party. And we know that black men have always are much more malleable and pliable of voting base than black women. Black women are the base of the Democratic Party. And I think what Joe Biden is going to try and do, what he's doing already and trying to formulate his coalition, like it said, it's wide but shallow, is by having Cesar Chavez's granddaughter run his campaign. He realizes that they're vulnerable with Latino voters, even in traditional Democratic strongholds. And particularly with some of these culture-based arguments about transgender people and sports and all this stuff that honestly doesn't really matter. You know, I'm gonna just put it out there. I think there are transgender issues, but sports isn't one of them. You know what I mean? Like that's just, I'm gonna keep it real with you.
Right.
I think that suicide, bullying, incarceration, those are real issues for trans people that we should be fighting for.
Absolutely.
But seeing, they're gonna try all that culture war stuff. And Democrats are vulnerable right now, especially President Biden, with the border, number one, with Latinos, and also with some of these, culture war issues to losing Latino voters. So I think he's going to focus a lot on that. And what he really needs is some Democrats that are going to fight for him. Now, again, the Democratic establishment never does the smart thing and reaches out to people like you and me and others that have, even a small black following, and ask black strategists about how can we talk to black men. They don't do that. And
no, they don't. And guess what, bro? The Republicans play off of and this is like probably one of the most backward ass strategies, but they play off of our fear. Even though the party is afraid of black men, they play off of our fear that we won't get the opportunities, we won't have access to resources, we won't gain power, right? And essentially they play off of our ignorance to make us believe that, you know what, we've changed. And I don't believe it. I call bullshit because I don't believe it. Look, I want to play this Tim Scott video before we take our next pause. Tim Scott talking about why he's deciding to run and what he thinks is going to be the important part of what's on the ballot for the 2024 election. Take a look.
Number one is that we have to restore confidence in America. We have to believe that we are the greatest nation on earth. I believe America can do for anyone what she has done for me. We have to focus on restoring hope, creating opportunities, and protecting America. All three things President Biden has failed at. If you want to restore hope, let's make sure that every single child in every single neighborhood has quality education. If you want to create opportunities, let's have the best economy in the history of our land. That means we lower taxes, not increase taxes, and we make the Tax Cuts and Job Act tax cuts permanent. That's a $2.6 trillion add to the American families around this country. And if you're going to protect America, you see China for what it is, an adversary, and you close our southern border that would stop 70,000 Americans from losing their lives and 6.3 million illegal crossings. This is achievable, but it would require new leadership.
Look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, our final segment with Dr. Jason Nichols, get his take on that. And, of course, from you folks. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We have been talking about two black conservatives, two black GOP members who have decided to throw their hats into the ring as they have announced their campaigns to run for president of the United States. We're talking about conservative radio show host Larry Elder, who ran here in California but lost against Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom. And we're also talking about South Carolina Republican Senator Tim Scott, who decided to run against his own former governor, Nikki Haley, but also against President Trump for the GOP nomination. Let's talk to Dr. Jason Nichols as we have this part of the conversation. As we played the piece that Tim Scott said as to why he's deciding to run for America in terms of building families and essentially giving people hope for the future of this country. It's hard for me to believe that hope is going to come from, and I know some people say, well, this is bias for Raji, bias, but I'm not looking at bias. I'm looking at exactly what is happening with the GOP and its relationship to the black community. And you correct me if I'm wrong, Doc, because you study this. Is the relationship between black folks in the Republican Party at a place where we should believe that we can get some sort of gain, some level of power, or get any type of, if any one of our interests met?
They don't even want to teach your kids their own history. They're trying to ban books about Jackie Robinson and Rosa Parks.
Okay.
So if that means, if they won't even let your kids learn about their own history, anything that mentions race, because they're worried that their kids will feel bad, then that should tell you how they value you.
So if that's the case, and it is, then what is this conversation about black folks getting and infiltrating the GOP? If they're not willing to tell us about our history, if they're not willing to even acknowledge the fact that we have a policing problem, or they're not even really acknowledge the fact that this country is racist, systemically racist. If you can't even acknowledge that, how is it that black folks can still say black people need to be a part of the GOP? We need to infiltrate. Black folks need to be in those seats of power. How can that happen, Doc?
Yeah, I don't really understand those conversations. I think, if anything, if you want to say black folks need to make their agenda known to Democrats and to, shake things up within the Democratic Party, that we need to get some, even if you say some of these older octogenarian Democrats need to go and we need to get black people elected all over the country, particularly younger ones, I'm with that, and on a local level, I think, if you want to start a different party on a local level, you know what I'm saying, to run for city council and to run for, positions like mayor or something like that, I'm totally with that too. We don't necessarily need to go with the Democratic Party on that level. But at the national level, you need some resources, and I think you are in a much stronger position to demand that within the Democratic Party. It's strategic. It's not because we love Democrats or what people say we're addicted to the Democratic Party, and they even use your history against you and tell you to get off a plantation as if that's cool.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. Faraji, where you and me come from, you tell somebody to get off a plantation, you get punched in the mouth. You know what I'm saying? But yet Republicans will say that kind of stuff and then tell you they're not racist or that the country isn't racist. So I think that there's a lot that we can do in the Democratic Party. I understand people who say we don't have leverage if we can't withhold our vote. And I think that there's something to that too. But Democrats, I think, understand even a few black folks not voting means they lose. Mm-hmm. Even a few. And Republicans understand that as well. That's why they're trying to take your vote away. So they're trying to take your vote away and then tell you they're not racist. Mm. They're trying to take away what your granddaddy was out there fighting for. You know what I'm saying? Getting beaten up by the police, and yet they're going to tell you, oh, come vote with us. And there's some contrarian black folks that are like, yeah, I'm gonna go with, I don't like Joe Biden. And you ask them why, and then they don't really have a full answer for that. Or they bring up some talking point from 50 years ago, which I get. I'm not in love with Joe Biden either, to be honest with you. But I think you have a better chance with Joe Biden than somebody who, like Trump, who is appealing to people who are completely against your own interests.
Right.
You don't have to accept everything from Joe Biden.
Right.
But
right.
I think you should stay in Joe Biden's face, and we should. But you can't just go over to the other side thinking they're going to accept you. It's like if you're in the Crips and you got beef with the Crip down the street, you don't be like, you know what, forget this. Let me take this flag off and go over to the Blood neighborhood. It's not going to work out well for you.
No. And because you know what? And here's the thing. If we bounce from party to party, we actually look weaker than if we were to say, this party isn't working for me, this party isn't working for me. So I'm going to try to figure out how to create a space for my own voice, for my own political agenda, right? It looks weak. because now you're at the whim of looking like I'm trying to use the best word because this is a family show, but you're at the whim of not selling yourself short, selling yourself out for a little bit of crumbs from this party, a little bit of exposure and an acknowledgement from that party. This is the type of situation that's put Black folks in, when in response, like, we're the ones that should be courted. Instead, we're the ones that are doing all the courting. We have all of this power in this country, Doc. You know it and I know it, right? We often talk about these elections that come down to the Black vote, to the Black voting bloc, to young Black people and all of this stuff. But we still position ourselves in a space where we want to do all of the courting. Hey, you want my vote? Hey, you want my vote? No.
Right.
No. None of these, and I'm just saying, the GOP party has not done enough to make me feel like, you know what? I'm going over there. They haven't done enough. Now, some people say the Democrat, they've done a little bit more than the GOP, though. I will say that. I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that. They've
Most
done
definitely.
a little bit more than the GOP, but
Little
really, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But we don't even love ourselves enough and believe in our own capacity and ability for us to take our own political destiny in our own hands, to even fathom, just to even have the conversation. Just like we said for the past 30, 40 years, the conversation about reparations, how it just even having a conversation has scared so many people. We can't even have the conversation about an alternative political reality for Black people in this country. Just can't even have the conversation without Black people. Oh no, this is crazy. See, what y'all need to do is vote, and just have a conversation. That's all. That's all we can have. Look, I just shared with y'all with the USA Today said that if President Biden had another Democratic challenger, he might not be the guy for the Democrat. Or check this out, even if they don't have another Democratic challenger, if they had a third party candidate, come on, man, this country is primed for something new and different and refreshing. We're looking at Biden-Trump part 2, folks, for 2024. And you mean to tell me that's okay?
Look, man, I'll tell you, if Bernie Sanders,
that's okay.
Right. If Bernie Sanders were 20 years younger, you know what I mean?
And see, and we can say that, Don. Hey, Jason, we can say that, brother. But the fact is, we got to deal with where we are, right?
Right.
If Bernie Sanders was 20 years younger, if Biden didn't say something from 25 years ago, in 2023 going into 2024, you mean to tell me that's all we got? Trump and Biden. And I'm not saying it's the worst, but I'm saying all of this political brilliance, all of this innovation, all of this evolution of ideology in this country, you mean to tell me that that's okay? You mean to tell me we can have a man on the ballot who is a criminal, a known criminal?
Yep.
And that's okay. Okay. Y'all gonna just tell me, oh, we just need to go out and vote to make sure a known criminal doesn't get back into office.
Hey, Faraji, with 26 sexual assault allegations against him, including a rape, which he's in court for right now. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
All right. We're gonna leave it like there. We're gonna leave it right there because I gotta bring my brother back, God willing, next week. Dr. Jason Nichols, how can folks get to know you and, more importantly, listen to what you got to say on your podcast, bro?
Definitely check out my podcast, The Working Class Elites. We're always putting up good episodes. We have one, of course, with Faraji Muhammad, so definitely check that out. And I don't want to promote Elon Musk's vanity project, so you can find me on Facebook at Jason Nichols, PhD, or just Jason Nichols if you want the non-political sports opinions, but you can find me anywhere, and I'm on all the social media, including Elon Musk's vanity project. and that's at Dr. Jason Nichols. So yeah, find me anywhere of those places. I'd love to talk to you. Peace.
There it is, Dr. Jason Nichols. Thank you so much. And God willing, we'll reconnect with you on The Culture next Monday. And of course, thank you for being so good for the culture. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's switch gears. Let's check in and get some more updates on how we can reclaim our wellness this week. We're going to be checking in, of course, with Dr. Bridget Cole-Williams, MD, to talk about mental health and Black youth. Stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. It is Monday, and so it's time for us to check in with Dr. Bridget Williams, MD, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness.
Hello.
Oh, got it right there. I thought we had, okay, all right, there we go.
How are you, Faraji?
Dr. Bridget, I'm good. How are you?
Good.
So let's talk a little bit. We talked offline about this, and I wanted us to have a conversation about something that I know is near and dear to you as well,
yes,
which is the state of our young people, Black youth in particular in this country. And I came across this piece in the Washington Post about the fact that Black youth are now struggling in a space of fear and resignation because of the shooting of little brother Ralph Yarl. That a number of teenagers or preteens, 12-year-olds, 11-year-olds, and 13, 14-year-olds are afraid now, are afraid to go to the wrong house or cross the wrong person. And Black parents are really, really afraid that their child might be mistaken or even harmed or even killed as a result of a simple mistake. Talk to us a little bit about the mental health, the strain of that on Black youth, if you can.
Absolutely. So we're focusing today on the story about Ralph Yarl, who was the teenager that was shot April 13th in Kansas City, Missouri. So he was going to pick up his siblings over at a friend's house, and he rang the wrong doorbell. A 6-year-old kid and an 84-year-old man came out and shot him twice. Now, just for clarification, he has recovered. I believe he's back at home now. And so he's been incredibly, blessed. And we've been following the story for a little while about what's going on with him. What is really in the Washington Post, however, is not just a story about this shooting, but how this shooting, as well as many others, have led children to be apprehensive, to be scared, to feel uncomfortable in their own neighborhoods. And the slightest mistake could lead to someone being shot or to someone's death. And I can get into different aspects of this, but, Faraji, I've said it here before, that if you are Black in America, you have PTSD. And this, and I've said it before, I say it in my practice on a regular basis, And not only we're talking about the adults, but that PTSD that you have when you're Black in America is coming to our children at early ages now. And so I think that's the real thing that we need to discuss.
So what would that look like? And I mean, I agree with you, Doc, that that Black youth might be carrying some level of burden and are trying to figure out and trying to process everything that's around. First and foremost, what are some of the symptoms or the signs that your child or your nephew or your grandchild might be experiencing PTSD? What does that look like for young people?
Absolutely. So when I say that, people think that I'm taking light of it, but the fact of the matter is PTSD is when you either have a direct or indirect exposure to a traumatic event, which we have with this shooting, with all the other shootings, with the shootings in schools, that children are being traumatized just by watching the news at this point. The symptoms can have feelings where you have intrusive thoughts coming back to you. You're avoiding places, activities, and behaviors because of fear. You have negative changes as far as the thoughts and mood that the child might have. And as far as how you react, you become hypersensitive, you startle easily. That's just the beginning. There's much more detail to it. But when you are seeing this on the news, when this is someone that you knew in your neighborhood or just going on in your school, children are experiencing PTSD at a very early age, even if it has not been something they've experienced themselves. How can you not have a reaction to hearing a story like this?
So should we not have conversations? Like, should parents not have conversations with their Black teenagers or daughters, sons, grandsons?
No, we're talking about this, and you do not help someone, and this is sometimes the problem that we have. We're afraid of re-traumatizing, but at this point, that if we are not having isolation in itself is a trauma. Okay, so let me say that again: not discussing things, not addressing a certain issue. The brain perceives it in the same way as a physical violence. So do not look at this and say, oh, well, I don't want to cause any, ruffle any more feathers. I'm just not going to talk about it. Don't look at this like, well, you're Black in America. I made it through my youth and in my teenage years, you'll make it too. It is time that we have conversations about this, because no matter how you did well with this or not, you don't know really how your children are being affected by this, particularly our youngest ones. We're looking at, our 6, 8, 12-year-old. You don't know how they're processing it unless you get into these conversations. Do not avoid this by any means.
And so that leads to my next question, which is, how do we have these conversations, Doc? I mean, do you have these conversations where it's just like blindsides your child, where it's like, did y'all hear about the boy that was shot in the head by his neighbor?
Right. So many times, whether they're getting it from the news, it's easy to say, hey, what are you guys talking about in school? Has this come up? There was an incident, in Kansas. How have you talked about it? Are your friends talking about it? Those are important things to just see what is their context when it comes to this at this point. How did you feel about it? And many times kids are still struggling to put words around their feelings. So for you to share, hey, this is how I felt about it. This is what I think is unfortunate. Many times if you do blindside them, it is more difficult. You don't necessarily get the information that you're hoping to get, but many times it's easier to, if you're in the car, you're both looking forward. It causes a little less confrontational aspect to it. If you're doing, sitting there, sometimes eating dinner might be an option, or doing a craft, depending on the age, something where there's a slight bit of distraction, but enough that you're one-on-one, you're able to have that conversation to be able to dig in.
This is some good stuff here. Look, folks, I want y'all to join us in the discussion as we checking in with Dr. Bridget, MD, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness segment. What are your thoughts around the fact that there are some real legitimate fear that Black youth are having right now as a result of the Ralph Yarl shooting? Share your thoughts on as we're streaming live on YouTube and, of course, on Facebook. And we would love to hear what your take is about the situation. My sister Nicole Spicer checked in. She said, we have to talk about mental health and our Black youth. We are in perilous times. So I agree with you. I totally agree with you, right? But see, I feel like, Doc, that there is a line that we make sure that we don't have to cross, because I don't want my children to carry the burden of this world, right? The same way that I carry it, right? I'm making my children more afraid. I'm making my children less sure about themselves. I'm making my children paranoid about other people. How do we create that balance, Lynette?
Absolutely. So the fact of the matter is, the reason why I say look to see if they're talking about it at school. Contact the school, contact the teacher saying, hey, are you going to have a conversation about this? Because I want to talk about it at home and I want to know what you're discussing at school. That's a legitimate thing to do. Teachers have responsibilities. They are a part of raising their children and being a part of their education. So to be able to come together and say, well, how are you managing this? And if they're not discussing this at school, why are they not preparing your child in some way? So keep that in mind as well. So I understand that you're saying, hey, I don't want to bring up something that's not affecting my kid, but you need to find out if it is affecting your kid in some way or another.
So there have been times where my son was taught about certain things in school, like things that big national conversation that we haven't had a chance to sit down and talk to him about. Is it the schools, responsibility to have these conversations, or how do we make sure that when we do have these discussions, it's in a way that's empowering and parents feel like, you know what, somebody else is not swooping in to teach my children about the world?
Absolutely. So traditionally in situations like this, the school should be contacting parents and saying, we're going to be having a session, a conversation around this big event. And we would like to know what your point of view is. If you want your child there, there might be some people that say, I don't even want my child there that day. And so you have the right to do that. But children's education is such a vital part of their experience, and the school system should not be bailing out particularly when it comes to these situations that are occurring right now.
Look, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we got more thoughts from our online culture crew. Folks, I want to hear from you as we are talking to Dr. Bridget and for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness segment. Join us in the conversation as we talk about how Black youth are now becoming more afraid and have great concerns about their well-being after the Ralph Yarl shooting. What's your take on that? Then stay with us. You're tuned into The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this
going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shootings.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking to Dr. Bridget, MD, who is our doctor here on The Culture, our medical contributor for this week's episode of Reclaim Your Wellness. And folks, today we're talking about something that you may have already been experiencing or you may have learned about, which is that Black youth in particular are becoming more afraid and more concerned about their livelihood after the Ralph Yarl shooting. I want to go, Dr. Bridget, I want to share with you what some of our culture crew members have to say about this. James Fording, James, you checked in a couple of times, and I appreciate you, James. You said this, you said, if nothing changed after them 4 children at the school got murdered, nothing will. What would it possibly take? As usual, a few months go by, and everyone forgets about it. I've lost count. It's insane. But James also said, I hate how they rant on about abortion, but care little about the real, actual, living children that suffer every day from gun violence. Their view is seriously twisted. A 6-week-old fetus is not a child.
100%. I hear you. I hear you. Absolutely. I would say that, you know, even in this this article from the Washington Post, it goes on to say that the African American Knowledge Optimized for Mindfully Healthy Adolescents Project, long name, was looking at the effect of racial trauma. And they said 18% of young people of color have experienced some racial trauma often or very often in their lives. I, reading this, call foul on this. And I say that because looking at the study, I think it's much more than 18%. I think it's really understanding what does racial trauma look like and children understanding that. They looked at kids from 11 to 17 years old. They only really interviewed 16 kids. I think the number is much, much higher. And many times kids are experiencing different behaviors, different things going on, and they don't really know what to make of it. Yep. I think we need to teach our children more about not only what they may be experiencing, but how to respond to it. And when I say that the school has some responsibility because in educating our children need to be in safe places. That used to be the school. But whether it's church, whether it's some group, whether it's school, children need to be in places where they are uplifted, particularly now more than ever. So we often say, oh, I want to keep my kids busy, keep them off the street. Don't just keep them busy, keep them uplifted, elevate their self-esteem. You can keep them, they can mow your lawn and be fine. Do things that are actually uplifting to their self-esteem, how they view themselves, because this world is not going to do that for them. And taking it all the way back, it takes a village. It takes more than just the mom and dad. It takes a large family structure. It takes people. Children need to be affirmed in multiple aspects of their life. It's like when I tell my kids, "Oh, you're the best, you're most beautiful, they just, okay, mom," right? But they need to be affirmed in other places to be able to understand who they are. And if the world is looking at them and marginalizing their experiences, demeaning who they are just because of the color of their skin, that is going to have such a huge impact that when you see these episodes going on with the shootings, it affects their experiences, it affects their self-esteem, and it leads to what I am discussing as far as the PTSD.
I love it. Dr. Bridget, I absolutely love it. You are absolutely right that it's not just about keeping them busy, because that's what some of our parents think, right? And I understand that the thought pattern, like, okay, if they're playing football, if they're already always in practice, if they're doing some extracurricular stuff, then they don't have time to get involved in other stuff. But you're right. They could do all of those things and still feel less about themselves, still feel like their humanity is not respected. So I agree with that. I love that. Yeah. Let me share with some more of what our crew has to say. Janelle, my sister, you said this has got to be so confusing for these kids because they're supposed to be safe at home, at school, at church. This trauma is really doing a number on our nation. How serious is this trauma? When you talk, and I know you quoted that part about from that study, 18%, and I agree with you. I think it's much more than that. But can we quantify at this point how serious racial trauma is on the next generation of Black people? Can we quantify that at this point right now?
I think it is still yet to be seen, right? Because we are in the midst of it right now. If you're watching the news on a regular basis, and I have to say, shielding your children to some degree from the news is not a bad idea. They don't need to see every episode that's going on, okay? But if the school shooting, if it's not an incident like we're talking about with this child or the multiple, you can't turn on the news without seeing something, right? It is going to have an effect, and we're in the midst of this right now. So to say how affecting people, it's hard to put a number on. However, I definitely think the need that we have right now is to counteract this as best we can. And we talk about gun control, we talk about educating ourselves and providing the support. What I'm actually suggesting, and I'll get into some resources here in a minute, it's one thing for what we do to protect our children. It's another thing to put the ball back into the court where it started. And I am actually saying to the majority of people out there, to the white people out there, do better. Have accountability. Talk to the people in your family. The man that shot that little boy, one of his grandsons said that it was shocking but not surprising.
Right.
He
we
said
talked
that
about it. Yep.
Right. That he saw signs from his grandfather that when this actually happened, he was shocking, but again, not surprising. Right. We can't do this alone. Right? Because we are not in it alone. There's a whole other side to this. And so we need to have accountability for the people that claim to be allies. Get to work. You claim to be an ally. Get to work. We cannot do this on our own.
I think that's very true, Doc. I think that's very true. But I don't know what it will take to move white people. Maybe it's through their young people. Maybe it's through their children and nieces and nephews and grandchildren that we got to influence them to say, hey, look, this ain't right. Because they're closer to the culture than their parents or their grandparents or their uncles or aunts are. So, we can say, like, this is not right. This is not right. And here's what I think. I think the other part of it is, if we position or really have this conversation in the context that I don't care how great you are as one group of people, what you brought to the table, this country will not get better until Black and brown and poor people in this country are at a better position. I don't care what nobody says.
Yeah. No, I agree.
If the quality of life for Black, brown, and poor in this country hasn't been significantly improved, we cannot actually say this country is making the type of progress that we say we want to see and we want to hope for. There's got to be some new metrics that has to be put in place on this situation. Look, we're going to take another quick pause. When we come forward, folks, we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Bridget for Reclaim the Wellness segment, and of course, get your thoughts as well. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20036-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig?
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been talking to Dr. Bridget, MD, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness segment, and talking to the good doctor about the mental health of Black youth, that there is a very real, palpable fear and great concern about Black youth have about what their lives may end up or how their lives may be impacted after the shooting of little brother Ralph Yarl. And this is something, I think, Dr. Bridget, this is one of those conversations, like, it spoke about this in a Washington Post article, that just as much as we're willing to have the quote unquote the talk about how our children should be presenting themselves to the police and how they should interact with police, we're going to have another conversation about being able to process the world around them in a healthy way. One of my online crew members mentioned that you really, it's sad because we're not with our children all the time. They're not always willing to open up and have these conversations and talk about every single experience, especially. And I'm looking at myself, thinking about myself in this process. If you just come home from a long day at work, you've been around a lot of other people, you've been doing, your mind is all over the place, and then your child wants to talk to you about their day. Some of us can be very like dismissive, like, oh, okay, yeah, good day. I'm glad. How was school? Good. Okay. We're not having the very like focused and concentrated discussion with our children to talk to them about what happened, how they felt about a certain situation, how they impacted their mood. Some of us may not be having those type of conversations just simply because we don't have the mental space after a long day of work or being out and about or doing what we need to do. So there needs to be something that has to be said, like from your perspective, how can parents take a beat to get prepared to have these conversations or a type of feedback from their children, so that way their children can feel like, when I have something on my spirit, on my heart, I can talk to mom, dad, auntie, uncle, granddad, grandmom, and they're going to actually listen to me.
Absolutely. So number one, I think it's saying that when you have something on your heart, you can come to me. I think having a cue of something that tells you this is time to talk. For me personally, when I get in the car, this is when I'm going to say, what are they talking about at school? Are they talking about anything on the news? How are things going? How's that friend doing? I tell my children to be an observer so that they can really see people's behavior. And I will say, what have you observed? And it's almost a cue that this is the language that we have for them to really share what's going on. But for a lot of people, it is hard. I'm tired at the end of the day, just like everybody else. Sometimes you need to decompress yourself for your own mental health.
Right.
But I think many times there might be that place. For a lot of people, it's in the car. You're in it, but you're also distracted. You're both looking forward. It's not intimidating. And say, what are they talking about? How are you feeling? Do you ever, when you're doing certain activities or with certain people, do they make you feel good, or is it a bad feeling when you're around those people, right? And teaching them their intuition, that gut feeling. When you get that, don't ever ignore that, because you aren't with them all the time, right?
Yeah.
But if you can tell them that you are powerful, you are knowledgeable, you are able to determine what is good and bad. And when you get that feeling in your spirit, pull back. Because for some reason or another, something about that person, that situation, the language they use, the way they look at you, never underestimate your intuition. And so it's teaching little things like that along the way that will be helpful. The fact of the matter is, there is this dialogue, there is this myth in our society about the super predator. I'm highly concerned about our Black boys, because society is given this impression that Black teenagers are older, they're bolder, they're stronger, they're more likely to commit crimes, they're more of a threat of violence in our society. If you pull up the numbers aren't showing that more than white boys. We're just put in a situation where we are confronted and imprisoned more often. And so what we need to do is elevate how they view themselves, continuously creating opportunities to make them feel good about the way they look, about how smart they are, about their abilities, and encouraging that and making sure that they're around people that do nothing else but lift them up.
I love it. I absolutely love it. My brother, Willie Frazier, my guy, you checked in. Let me pull up Willie's piece, because Willie, you made the point about our children. Let me pull this up really, really quickly as we pull it up. All right, let me go. Before I pull up Willie, let me go to Real Brooklyn. Real Brooklyn, you say amen, Faraji. That is word is bond on that verse you just spit on bettering the country through the betterment of Black and brown people. Yeah, I'm gonna stick to that, folks, and I appreciate you, Real Brooklyn, because I know that the success of this country lies in the hands of Black, brown, and poor people. That's where it is. We built this country. We've contributed immensely to this country. And I'm speaking of both communities and poor people. That can include whether you talk about women, poor whites, whatever the case may be. But that's where the success is. If we keep thinking that some rich person is going to come up with some new idea that's going to free us all, that's going to bring some peace of mind to all of us, and then we wait on that, Doc, I mean, we're putting ourselves in a trick bag for real.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, it is our responsibility to uplift ourselves. And so I really want to make it clear that if you are struggling with being hypersensitive, where you're being startled easily, where you have negative thoughts about who you are and how people are perceiving you and what's going on, if you have trouble with eating and sleeping, and you can't get all of this that's happening in the world out of your mind, or if your child is sharing some of this, then I highly recommend get diagnosed. And we've talked before about finding a doctor that reflects your needs and that can see you for who you are, right? And then getting the support group that would be beneficial for you. Go to therapy. It can be online. The Medicaid provides free therapy. The workplace provides assistance as well. If you don't have insurance, most of these therapists provide some sort of sliding scale. But to minimize the importance of your mental health, particularly with everything's going on, particularly with your children, you're doing them a disservice, because they will carry, and it's not the same world that we grew up in, that we need to do more for our kids. And I will have some of the resources available on my Instagram page, but I will also say, if you're not ready for therapy, or if you feel like your kid's not really at that point, finding ways to calm down their nervous system. There is an app called Liberate Meditation app. It is a meditation app for Black and brown people. Okay. It is an app. Calm down the disruptions, the energy, the phone, the reels, all of these things that are overstimulating our kids. Find ways to bring down that intensity so that they can calm their spirit. So if therapy isn't it for you, and for many it's not, you're not at that point, consider ways that you can calm down your neurology, your system, so that you can be less fight or flight. Calm down your sympathetic system.
And this is, you say you're going to put these resources on your IG page as well, right? Now.
Yes.
This is the type of self-care that we're talking about. All right, I found my brother Willie Frazier's comments. He said, the thing that is bothering me is that everything that is going on is trying to reinforce Black inferiority in this country. What can we do to reinforce mentally our humanity in this country? Great question, really, Willie. Thank you, bro.
Absolutely. So what I see is that if we have to buy into our greatness, first and foremost, right? That we cannot let outside factors that we don't even respect or have, or not paying your bills, to have any influence on our self-esteem. And it is building your self-esteem and who you are and your children is something that we need to do every day. We need to redefine the narrative, that we need to understand that we are capable, we're beautiful, we're intelligent, we are artistic, we are bold in everything that we do. And that we have to take that narrative, reinforce it with your family, your friends, and your children, and keep that energy of greatness so that your children can, if someone looks at them sideways or questions their intelligence, that they're looking back at them like, it's not me, it's you.
Yeah.
That we have to be able to build up that character despite everything else going on around them. And we can only do that. We ourselves can only do that. No one else can do that for us.
Absolutely. As we close out, Antonio, Truth Seeker, my brother, you said, Dr. Bridget, great point. Also, children need to feel that parents are truly compassionate when it comes to their area of activities. Absolutely. That compassion is the part. And, you know, we talked about this before, Doc, where, you know, parents kind of parent based upon the experiences of parenting that they had when they grew up. Like, you know, we kind of pass on this parenting style from generation to generation. And I think, to Brother Antonio's point, that it requires us to be more intentional and conscious about what I was exposed to as a child being parented, and now what I'm exposing my child to as a parent, right? But there has to be some intentionality in that exchange, so that way we can break vicious cycles. Like Brother Antonio was saying, being more compassionate. Like if you grew up, my father's 75 years old, so he grew up in a time where it was just like hard, not, you know what I mean, kind of like laying down the law. Compassion wasn't always there.
Right.
The compassion wasn't always there. So how do we make sure that we start to infuse some of these other kind of like soft skills into our parenting style?
I think you have to be willing to be vulnerable, and that you have to create a level of thoughtfulness in your kids. So like I said, you're having those car conversations. What if you said to your child, what do you need from me? You know, you're doing, and they might start saying, oh, I need a new basketball. No, what do you need from me? What, you know, and many times when you're asking those questions, you probably already know the answer. Right. So when you start saying, hey, do you need me to be at your game a little bit more? Because, you know, I'm working a lot and this is why that's happening. But I can try. Some kids be like, oh, I didn't notice you weren't even there. Like they might not even, that might not be their thing. But they might say, I wish we didn't go and get fast food so much. Hey, do you want to cook with me? Because I can make time. And that once a week we cook together. Like you can figure, you know. But have the conversation to see if it aligns with who they are. Because there's still little people that are everything like you and completely different at the same time. Right?
Yeah.
And so you know things you could do. But find out if that aligns with their needs at this point. But you have to be willing to be vulnerable and not defensive, and understand there might be times where they need something and it's not something that you can really provide. But now you know, and you're aware, and you have the conversation, and you keep having language and open doors so that the conversation is never, in the beginning, it's going to be horribly uncomfortable. But if you create an opportunity to be completely transparent, that will make you the best parent that you can be.
Oh my God, Doc, you saying something? You are saying, Doc, you preaching today, sis. You are preaching. I'm telling you, I'm telling you, because I've tried a couple of those techniques, and it's made a world of difference. My son feels so safe to tell me what I've done right and what I've done wrong, right? And instead of me jumping into my feelings, because I can get in my feelings. I'm like, oh my. Then I have to stop myself and be like, you know what? I want him to be honest, and I want this to be a safe space. So one of the things that I've learned, especially growing up, is that even when we're dealing with all of these other, you know, dehumanizing issues, is to tell your children that you love them each and every day, to say that you apologize to them, to reinforce that you're not perfect. You know what I'm saying? Like some of these things, especially like these big conversations from racial justice and trauma to other issues. Like, we're still trying to figure this out, son. You know, as a Black father, I tell my son all the time, like, I'm a Black father, son. So I'm still trying to process this stuff. So there's a sense of, when I come to my son, he knows, like, my dad is not perfect. He does not have all of the answers. But the one thing that I can say about my dad is he's going to be authentic and honest with me throughout this process.
And then share with your kids that your experiences growing up as well. I think sometimes you get so far along, you start to even forget what you went through. Reconnect with that, because you sharing, you'll understand your child better. And when you say, hey, listen, I went through that too, and you share that story, that will give them a sense of understanding, right? That you're a part of, that you've had similar experiences as well, and you made it through.
Absolutely. Doc, we gotta go, but it's always a pleasure. We're gonna share Lisa, if we can share her social out there, because Doc is going to be having some resources posted on her IG page. Plus, folks, make sure y'all tune into to Dr. Bridget's after chat, where she has these conversations after the show. 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, from 5:30 to 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Mondays. And her after chats are off the chain.
Yes. Well, let me say tonight, because I'm at a conference in New York, and if you're in New York, go to my IG, go to Dr. Bridget MD, follow me, send me a message. I'm doing conferences the whole week while I'm here. We're not doing the after chat tonight, but I will have these resources posted. And if you follow me when I do go live this week, because I will still go live to discuss this, you'll get an alert. So absolutely.
There it is. Thank you so much, Dr. Bridget. God willing, we'll reconnect with you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. Thank y'all for tuning in. Make sure y'all stay connected to us. Make sure you go to blackstarnetwork.com. Show your support, as we need your support financially, sharing the content, and, of course, follow us on social media. So go to blackstarnetwork.com. Big shout out to my team. Lise, thank you for holding it down, my control room. And, of course, to all of my online culture crew members, thank you, thank you, thank you. Stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture on the Black Star Network. Peace.